Newcastle United are one of the biggest clubs in the UK. They've got a huge fan base and massive finances to back it up, but despite all of this history, it's now been nearly 100 years since they've won the English top division back in 1927. The last time they won the FA Cup was in the 50s, and they have one European title in the 1960s in what was then the Europa League equivalent. So despite everything they have going for them, trophies have been the one thing that this club has lacked. Today though, I'm going to try and change that. I've got 5 years as Newcastle manager to try and win the Premier League. As mentioned, we've got a lot going for us. Decent facilities, a big reputation, as well as a huge fan base and a 50,000 capacity stadium. And even though FFP might be an issue down the line, the owners have definitely backed the club, putting a lot of money in, and they've signed some great players, even if we don't have one of the Prem's best squads. Bruno Guimaraes is one of the best midfielders in the Prem, and the Brazilian could probably play for anybody in the league. Whilst he is aging, Kieran Trippier is an integral part of our squad. And whilst he might be young, Alexander Isak has already proved he can lead the line for Newcastle. And speaking of young players like Alexander Isak, there's some other great youth talent at the club. Lewis Miley is one of the Premier League's most promising youngsters, and Elliot Anderson has certainly shown promise at the club. And that's not even to mention Tonali, Botman, Gordon, Livramento, Lewis Hall. There's plenty of great talent in this squad. But Newcastle are a team in transition, and as you can see, about 1/3 of the squad I would consider deadwood players that we're going to try and move on. In terms of transfers though, we've only got 4 million for the first season, and that's because Newcastle have already done a lot of their business. But either way, I'm going to try and make some sales and bring some players in to improve this team. Okay, so the first transfer window wasn't a crazy one. We'll start doing more transfers hopefully in the coming seasons, but we did manage to get rid of some players and bring in one key man. Martin Dubravka is a very capable backup, but when a Saudi Arabian side came in for 5 million for a 34-year-old, it made sense to move him on. I also managed to ship Jacob Murphy out the door, but I wouldn't have expected that he'd go to Roma, where he's moved for a fee of 7.25 million. Even though he is a pretty regular player for Newcastle, he's not someone I want to rely on long term. And Jamal Lascelles has gone on loan to Wolves for the season. It's the last year of his contract. I don't expect to renew it. I tried to sell him, but a loan will have to do. We're getting a fee of 1.5 million for the loan. And we use those sales plus our transfer budget to bring in a new centre-back to go alongside Botman, Shaw, and of course Dan Burn. This is Maxime Lacroix, a 23-year-old French centre-back joining us from Wolfsburg. Electric pace, £29 million is the fee, rising to 31, formerly of the French second division. He's a great ball-playing defender, and I think he's going to suit our team nicely, and hopefully we'll start to compete with Shaw for that other starting spot near Botman. Tactically, we're going to stick with the 4-3-3 shape that Newcastle have been running in real life. I might change this as we go, but our best team currently is Nick Pope in goal, of course, one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League when fit. Trippier at right back with Fabian Shaw at the back, age 31, next to Sven Botman. And then supposedly our best left back is Matt Targett, but realistically, I'm going to hope Tino Livramento takes up most of those minutes. Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali and Joe Linton is a very, very strong midfield for the Premier League. And then going forward, Almiron's our best on the right, Gordon's the best on the left, and Isak is our number 1 man up front. The board want us to qualify for the Champions League, and actually, according to the pre-season odds, we're predicted to come in 3rd place, 7-1 title favourites ahead of the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester United. I'm not quite sure I agree with that. I think we might be pushing the boat a little bit too far there, but either way, we're going to kick off season 1, see how we get on, and then we can start making our own transfers in the coming 4 seasons. Okay, so our first season is complete. It wasn't the best year, it wasn't the worst, but we certainly learnt a lot about our team. Now, Newcastle were already in the Champions League when we took over as manager, and we made it all the way to the round of 16, where we faced off against Inter at St James's Park. As you just saw, they went 1-0 up through Lautaro Martinez, but then with 58 minutes on the clock, clearly the fans got behind us. Joe Willock made his way through into the area and made it 1-1. Callum Wilson then scored from the spot in the 70th minute to put us in the lead, and with only a few minutes left on the clock, a ball from Harvey Barnes got cleared as far as our wonderman midfielder Bruno Guimaraes, who hit a low strike into the corner. That put us 3-1 up going into the second leg, but we then went to the San Siro and lost 3-0, so we came crashing out of a Champions League there. The FA Cup we were knocked out by Liverpool, the Carabao Cup knocked out by Chelsea, and in the Premier League we finished in a respectable 6th position. We weren't that great, we weren't terrible either. 68 points, nowhere near the top 5, but clear of anybody else below us, taking Man United's place in that traditional top 6 that you might expect to see. 20 wins and 10 losses wasn't the worst season we've ever seen, but it's definitely something we can build on, and it's great to see the likes of Alexander Isak tearing it up in the Prem. He wasn't the only one doing well though. Joel Linton chipped in with 12 goals, Kieran Trippier and Botman were two of our best players, and Lewis Miley had a great first year. 16 starts, 25 bench appearances with 5 goals in all competitions, developing well at the age of 18. But this is where the fun really starts, because going into season 2, we've got a £200 million transfer budget, 100 grand the wage budget. I am going to try and be quite sensible. I'm not just going to blow all of that money on players that we don't need. I'm going to go for a semi-realistic, slow rebuild of Newcastle without just splashing the cash everywhere. So let's see who we can bring in season 2. And we have made some huge transfers in this window. I think we've bought in some great players and got rid of a lot of deadwood. But before I show you those, I just want to ask you guys, if you could show your support, smash that like button for me. It'll give me a big boost, and subscribe if you haven't already, as we push for 50k, but our next target is 35k. We've got weekly Football Manager rebuilds, so make sure you hit that button if you enjoyed this. And let me know down below what rebuild you want to see next. Every one we do is based on your suggestions. And finally, if you want to check out my Patreon, you can find that in the description. In return for supporting me as a creator, you'll get access to all of the save files, season 1 through to 5, so you can take over and see if you can do a better job than I did with Newcastle or any of the other clubs we spent plenty of sleepless nights rebuilding. And speaking of sleepless nights, that leads us nicely onto today's video sponsor, and that is none other than Manta Sleep, who make the world's best sleep masks. Fully adjustable, ultra comfortable, and 100% blackout, these masks are a game changer. Now, Manta have sent me the Sleep Mask Pro, which I've been using for a couple of weeks now, and it's completely changed my sleep. Alongside this, Manta also offer Bluetooth sleep masks, steam sleep masks, and plenty more. Now, I mentioned before in the previous video sponsored by Manta Sleep that for me, sleep masks were never really a consideration. They weren't something that I assumed would be comfortable, and the ones I'd worn in the past definitely weren't. But this is fantastic. It doesn't really feel like you're wearing it. You've got zero eye pressure. You can sleep on your side perfectly fine, and it blocks out all the light that comes through in a summer morning that wakes me up too early, so I can get all of my sleep. Just as a test, I've got studio light shining on my face right now, and I cannot see a single thing. If these look good to you and you want to get one, use code JCFM at checkout for a discount. I'll leave a link to it all in the description down below. Thank you again to Manta Sleep for sponsoring the video. It really does help. But now, let's get back to the transfers. So, alongside releasing a bunch of players, we managed to sell on Jamal Lewis. He's gone to Sheffield United for 3.5 million. And we've also managed to ship off Matt Targett. He's gone to Saudi Arabia for a fee of 8.75 million, which isn't too bad, I don't think. Coming in though, we have a new backup goalie who hopefully will grow and take over Nick Pope's shoes. This is Alban Lafont, 25-year-old French goalkeeper who's joined us from FC Nantes out in France. 50 million quid is the fee, quite a lot for a backup goalie, but when you think that it's not just for him to be a backup forever, but for him to eventually take over as our number 1, I think it makes more sense, and I think we've got a great handy pick here in goal. I wanted some extra depth on the wings, so in comes Ryan Cherki, who can play on both wings. He's a player with a lot of potential who hasn't quite lived up to it just yet with Lyon out in France. He had a good year the other season, but then has kind of settled again. We've paid £20 million for him. I don't think that's too bad for a player that's already good potential too. Even if he doesn't set the world alight, he's a very handy squad option. I've bolstered our midfield by bringing in Kernan Dewsbury Hall of Leicester City, who did not get promoted in this world, and for that reason he was available at a cut price fee, 25 million rising to 27.5 for a really well balanced midfielder. He's good going forward, good defensively, and he works hard too. I think he's a great addition to our midfield and will pair nicely with Joe Linton, Tonali, Guimaraes and Lewis Miley. Lewis Hall's transfer was made permanent, not by us, it was an automatic deal done. Maybe overpaid for him in the Football Manager world, but he is a player that has a lot of potential to grow in that left back spot. Speaking of a left back though, we have added a new player, a player that's going to be our starter. Now you might think it's a weird transfer bringing in Marc Cucurella because his transfer to Chelsea didn't quite work out in real life, even if he's doing better recently, but he is someone that Newcastle have been linked with in the real life transfer windows. 30 million wasn't crazy in this Football Manager world. He's worth more than that, and I actually think attributes wise he should do a very good job in that left back role. And speaking of former Chelsea players, our final signing was Mark Guehi, who I think comes in as our best defender alongside Sven Botman. Yes, we bought Lacroix and now we bought Guehi, but I think we really did need some new centre-backs at the club. He's 24 years of age. He needed to take that step up from Palace. He's a leader with great ability. We bought him in for 43 million, and England in international. Yes, he wasn't great at Palace last season and they got relegated in this Football Manager world, but that means nothing to us. We're going to bring him in, and you can see he was definitely worth the money, now valued at 85 million. And here is what is now considered our best 11, but I do just want to take a minute to say thank you for all the support on the channel recently, because we are now getting some sponsorships and stuff, and while some people might be a bit annoyed at the fact that there is sponsors and skip through it, these kind of things really do help the channel, and it's you guys that have massively supported me to get me to a point where these kind of brands come forward and want to work with me. So thank you guys so much for that. But yes, let's take a look at this best 11 now, which is Nick Pope in goal, Trippier at right back with Gurhi, Botman and Cucurella, a very good Premier League back line I might say, with Guimaraes, Tonali, Joe Linton, Almiron, Gordon and Isaac. I think going forward I might want to improve on these wide players. Saying that, Gordon is a very good player, age 23. I just don't think he's represented in game as good as I think he could be in real life. I think he could be one of the elite wingers in the Prem eventually. Right now I don't quite think he's got that potential in FM. Saying that though, we have got a good first 11, we've got a great bench too, and if we now have a look at our season preview, we are predicted, drumroll, 4th place. So either we've got worse, or I think the games realise that the other teams are a little bit better than they predicted them to be. 9-1 title favourites. It's unlikely we'll win the title this year. We're going to give it a shot anyway. We've got 5 years to try and do so. Season 2, how can we do? And it really wasn't our best year. A 7th place finish, only 64 points, and for the first time in a while, we were actually threatened with the sack. Now, Manchester United out of nowhere have gone and won the league. We only got 64 points. The board wanted to get rid of us, but we had one saving grace, and that was because we were doing well in the Europa League. Having beat Besiktas, Nice and Salzburg, we made our way into the Europa League final, where Gordon put us 1-0 up early on against Fiorentina. And with 20 minutes left on the clock, despite having pretty little European know-how, our team managed to make it 2-0, Livramento finding Tonali, and even though we probably went in as one of the stronger teams in the Europa League, I think going 3-0 up in a final would have been something we could never have dreamed of, but Gordon made it happen, and despite a late goal from Fiorentina, we did manage to win the Europa League 3-1. We have won a European trophy in only 2 seasons as Newcastle manager. And we needed that, to be honest, because without that, I do think we would have lost our job. Quarterfinals of the Carabao, 4th round of the FA Cup, and that 7th place finish. It has now meant we've qualified for Champions League. Even with that, the board only have a C+ rating. If we hadn't qualified for the Champions League, this rebuild would have been over, would have had to start from scratch. So I'm very happy that that didn't happen. We've never actually been sacked in a rebuild yet. This is probably the closest I've came since FM23. And I think I'm going to be eternally grateful to some of these squad members like Isaac and Tino Livramento, who are our 2 best players this year. But we also can't forget the likes of Joel Linton getting 20, Tonali getting 13 goals, and Gordon chipping in with 12. We scored a lot more goals this season because of that Europa League run, but realistically, it just wasn't our best year. The league we really kind of cheaped out on a little bit, and we need to be better going forward. Saying that, we have now got a huge budget of 232 million. Once again, I'm not going to spend all of it, but I'm definitely going to try and improve this team. We got rid of a lot of a deadwood last season by letting their contracts expire, and I'm going to be doing the same again, getting out those old players that are still there from that mid-table relegation threatened Newcastle side, and now trying to make a team that can really compete for the Champions League on a regular basis. And we actually had a much quieter transfer window than I might have expected. In terms of incomings, we've got a new right back to back up our man Tino Livramento, because Kieran Trippier has now retired. We've got Ignace van der Bremt, who is a Belgium under-21 international, now 23, joining from Salzburg, where he's been excellent. Now, the game doesn't really rate him as a player star-wise, but his attributes look like he should be a good handy player, so I'm going to see how he gets on. If it doesn't work, we'll go for a new right back next season. Callum Wilson's only got a year left on his contract, and getting old, I'm not going to extend that, so I've bought in a new striker, Semi Kiliskoy, who's going to back up Alexander Isaac. But for this season, while Wilson is still here, I'm going to let him go back out to the club we bought him from for 20 million, Besiktas, and we're going to let him play his football, develop there, and hopefully next year he'll come back an even better player. Miguel Almiron has left the club on loan to Salzburg. Last year of his contract, we couldn't sell him, so I'm just trying to get some money out of him because he's not going to play as much anymore. And that's because we have a new right winger. Rooney Bargi is in, 19-year-old, taking the step up from FC Copenhagen for 16 million. Season 1 he struggled, Season 2 he shone in 20 appearances for the Danish side. Now he's one of the world's best right wing players, cutting in on that left foot. I think we've got a real gem, and he's surely going to walk in to our best 11. So it really was not a crazy season, but as some of those older players have started to leave and contracts have expired, we've ended up with a quite new look team now. Nick Pope is our goalie, with Livramento at right back, who is developing into a very good player. We've got Mark Gurhey and Botman as one of the most formidable defensive partnerships in the Premier League, Cucurella at left back, Guimaraes, Tonali and Dewsbury Hall in the middle, who's now supposedly better than Joel Linton, and after last season, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say just yet, but he's definitely developing into a very good player for us. Gordon's on the left, Isaac's up front, and Almiron is likely going to be Rooney Bargi on that right hand side. A very strong team, and if we have a look at the season preview, we are predicted second place. We're expected by the board to qualify for the Champions League, so clearly our team is now considered good enough to potentially compete for that Premier League title. 9-2 odds though are very far away Man City's odds of 13-8, but either way we're going to give it our best shot. After this we'll only have 2 years left, so we really need to go for it now and try and bring home some silverware. And season 3 was definitely our best season yet. This year we were in the Champions League and we managed to make a quarter-final where we faced off against Bayern Munich, and after losing 4-3 at the Allianz, we needed to try and come back at St James's Park. Musiala though had different ideas. He made it 1-0 on the night, which then put his side up 5-3 on aggregate, but Elliot Anderson appeared in the 86th minute to give our team some hope. We now just needed one more goal, but we could not find it. We came crashing out against Bayern Munich in the quarter-finals of the UCL, but that was not a bad effort at all. And in the league season, we had a brilliant year. Alexander Isak and Dewsbury Hall as two of the league's best players, guiding us to a second place finish. 75 points, our best yet, only 6 points away from Man City at the top of the league, 22 wins and 7 losses. The same as City, the same as Liverpool. We are really in now, that big 6 area. Now granted, us to Brighton could have been anyone, there was only a few points between us, but I still think that's been an excellent season. The biggest fall off though is Man United going from title winners all the way to 12th place, only 53 points. A very poor season for them. Arguably though, our greatest moment of the season was our first game where we had a UEFA Super Cup match, the Europa League winners against the Champions League winners. We faced off against Real Madrid and beat them 5-1. Sandro Tonali, Isaac, Harvey Barnes, Guimaraes and Wilson scoring 5, while Alaba scored 1 for Real Madrid. Combine that with winning the Euro Sam Club Challenge, which is basically the winner of the Europa League versus the winner of the Europa League equivalent in South America. We beat Palmeiras 5-1. That's 2 trophies that the club didn't have before, I believe, that we can now add to the cabinet. And it's those familiar faces that have done so well for us this year. Isaac, Gordon, Willock, I mean Anderson's done quite well too. Dewsbury Hall having a great year. Same for Sandro Tonali. Killaskoy doing very well on loan as well, developing into a very good player that might actually worry Alexander Isak a little bit for that starting spot. We had Rooney Bargi scoring 14 in his first year. A great performance from him, and overall this club is definitely heading in the right direction. We have been working on the facilities too. Financially, there's plenty of money in the balance. We're going into next season with £176 million to spend and 900 grand a wage budget. This Newcastle team is coming along nicely, but we need to add a few more key players if you want to topple Man City at the top of the league. And season 4, we've spent close to 100 million and made 30 million in sales, so let's get into those. Joe Willock was that major sale that made us all of that money. He's moved to Al Hilal out in Saudi Arabia, age 26, for a fee of 31 million. He's been a good servant for us, but I don't think any Newcastle fan would turn down that 30 million fee, particularly after a few years in this football manager world where he's been okay, but maybe not exceptional. So we'll let him go. He's a great player, but we'll take that money and reinvest it. And we've also let go of Joel Linton, who said that he wanted a new challenge in his career. As you can see, he felt he'd achieved everything here at Newcastle, so the Brazilian international has gone out on loan to Valencia for the season. Hopefully he does well there. After that, he'll still have a year left on his contract, I believe, so maybe he'll come back and want to play for us again. I don't know how it's going to go, but Joel Linton is off. Nick Pope also retired recently, which means there's a space in the squad for a new goalkeeper. Alban Lafont hasn't quite done it for me just yet, so I've signed a new goalie. This is Noah Autabulu, who is probably Germany's best young goalkeeper now in this save, better than Dennis Simon. He is signed for a fee of 24 million from Freiburg, where he's been their #1 in the Bundesliga for 3 seasons. Not bad for a player that's still only 24. He's our best goalie by far, better with the ball at his feet than Nick Pope was too, so hopefully we can now start playing a more expansive kind of football. football. Abel Ben Simon is a player our scouts found, a new gen player, an Argentinian international, age 20 centre-back, left-footed, ball-playing defender with great ability all around. This guy, if you end up continuing this save on my Patreon, I imagine in a few years will be one of, if not the world's best centre-backs. He's got so much potential, so much ability, 15 million quid from River Plate. He's this good at 20. When he's older, he is going to be phenomenal. And João Neves was our big money signing of the summer, £56 million for the Portuguese 21-year-old, joining us from Benfica, where he's been excellent. If we're talking about adding star quality to the midfield, we've definitely done it here with a world-class midfielder valued at over 120 million. And now, if we take a look at our best 11, let's see how good it's starting to look. In goal, it's Atabolu, with Livramento, Gurhi, Botman and Cucurella as still that very strong back line. For anyone wondering about the Cucurella signing, he's been pretty solid for us since joining, 30 million quid. If you're wondering about some of the younger players, Lewis Hall is developing pretty nicely into a handy backup left back, but that's about it. Lewis Miley is looking very good now, age 20. We've also got Ben Simon, who we mentioned earlier. Sami Kiliskoy is now going to be playing for us, which is going to be like a new signing with Callum Wilson retiring too. And Maxence Lacroix has been here for a few years, ticking on nicely as a squad level defender. Fabian Schär has also retired as well, so we have lost some of the key players in the team, but I don't think we've been let down at all. We've got a very good 11. I mean, that midfield looks absolutely stacked. If you take Joel Linton out and put João Neves in or Dewsbury Hall, all of these players could come in and we don't necessarily weaken, so I think that's exactly what we need to do for a Champions League competitive side. Keep adding star quality in every position. You want two good players in every area. And now, if we have a look at the season preview, is it still second place? It is. 6th place. Somehow we've gone all the way down, 11-1 title favourites, considering last year was our best year by far. I have no idea what they've seen in us to relegate us that far in the league table, but either way, I'm not too bothered. We're going to go into this with the aim of trying to win the league. We've only got 2 seasons to go, and for those interested, I don't know what's happened to Man U, but after a poor season last year, a 12th place finish, they've now got a -9 point deduction, and they went into administration. Now, I didn't go for any of their players, but all of their players were basically up for sale. Just to show you the kind of dire situation they're in, if I wanted to, I could pick up Anthony for 5 million and they'd probably have to accept it. Everyone is transfer listed. This might be the biggest fall of Manchester United I've ever seen, and it's down to Marco Rose to try and save them. I know that isn't necessarily part of the rebuild, but it was so interesting, I thought I had to show it. Our reputation's gone up. We're going into season 4 now, aiming to win that Premier League. And once again, we had a good season, and for the first time, we were in a domestic cup and doing quite well. We actually made the final of the FA Cup against Chelsea, where Sandro Tonali poached on an error from the Chelsea defence to make it 1-0. And just as we started the second half, Rooney Bargi took this brilliant shot to put it past Petrovic in goal to make it 2. And with only a few minutes remaining of the game, Harvey Barnes went up the left-hand side. We were already 2-0 up. He managed to find Lewis Hall, and if it wasn't a big enough kick in the teeth to lose against us, their own player scoring against them was definitely heartbreaking for Chelsea. Outside of that, it was a bit of a mixed bag. The league season, we were much better than last year points-wise, but we did only finish in 3rd place this time. But for me, that's progress. We're doing a good job of getting more points each season, and that's all I can ask with our team. We're in 3rd place. Liverpool and Man City do have better squads. They are above us, and they're expected to do so. Man United, by the way, incredible turn of events, finishing with 61 points. If they didn't have that -9 point deduction, they would have been around here in this 4th, 5th spot near Chelsea and Spurs, and that's with most of their squad leaving, so fair play to them. Quarterfinals of the Champions League might sound good, but when you realise we played Liverpool and they beat us 5-2 on aggregate, it's definitely not as good. And the Carabao Cup, we've got no chance, knocked out in the 4th round by Wolves. It wasn't our best year, but it's another trophy that we can add to the cabinet. The first time since the 50s that Newcastle have won the FA Cup, so I'm delighted with that. Joel Linton doing well on loan, Alexander Isaac with his best season yet, Tino Livramento doing great, Lewis Miley continuing his development, and Semi Kiliskoy comes into the Prem, comes into Newcastle and scores 21 goals in his first season, and he's already Turkey's #1 striker, age 21. So I think this team is really going to another level at the minute, and with 1 season left to go, we've got a big transfer budget of 200 million to try and improve what we've got. We've also improved the facilities since you've last seen us. I'm trying to upgrade the club, not just a team on the pitch. We're trying to make Newcastle a Champions League contender for the rest of history, really. With 1 year to go, we've already done well. We've won an FA Cup, a Europa League, we've challenged for the Prem, but I want to push on even further this year. We're going to have to try and win it. We've got 1 season to go. I'll take the Premier League or I'll take the Champions League. Let's see what we can win. First over, transfers for this final season. Going out the door is Ryan Cherky. Didn't quite work out for him after signing for us. He wasn't bad, but he didn't play enough to earn that 20 million fee. Thankfully, we got £6 million back, rising to 8 off FC Nantes, which I don't think it's the worst deal in the world. We tried something, it didn't work out. Not all transfers can. But the biggest loss this window was 29-year-old Bruno Guimaraes leaving the club to PSG. He had 1 year left on his deal. He was interested by other clubs, so didn't want to sign a new contract. So off he goes to Paris Saint-Germain. 80 million quid, not bad for a 29-year-old, and we can use that to reinvest in the squad. And reinvest we did. For pretty much all of that money, we spent it on a transfer listed Fede Valverde of Real Madrid, 73 million. He's in the prime of his career right now, and I think adding this calibre of player to our midfield is going to make that Bruno G loss not feel like anything at all. They're the same age, we made the same money from selling Bruno as what we've bought in Fede Valverde for, pretty much. He's a different kind of player, Valverde, but I'm very happy to have him in the team, and I think he could give us that know-how to get us over the line in the Prem. But just in case he hasn't, we've added some young players to help us out too. 23-year-old Estanis Pedrola joining us from Sampdoria for 13.5 million. The former Barca man is a fantastic option on the left-hand side. And if Rooney Bargi wasn't a big enough wonder kid for the right wing, he's now got Arda Güler as the backup in his position, joining from Real for 33 million. We sent him nearly 100 million in total for Valverde and Güler, and I think the Turkish 22-year-old is going to form a great partnership with Semih Kılıçsoy, and hopefully all of them can play to their highest level and reach their potential in a Newcastle shirt. And for the final time of this rebuild, here is our best 11 with Atabulu in goal, who's developing into one of the world's best goalies. At the back, it's Livramento, Gurhi, Botman and Cucurella, that strong defensive line with Tonali, Neves and Valverde as an unreal midfield three, really, for a Newcastle side. Rooney Bargi's on the right, Harvey Barnes is out on loan with Napoli for this season, so that's likely going to be Pedrola or Anthony Gordon. Either way though, Semih Kılıçsoy is supposedly now better than Alexander Isak. I'm not sure I agree with that. I can't complain though that we've got two very good strikers. And now the season preview for the last time. Do they bet on us? They don't really. 15-2 odds of winning the title. 4th place predicted finish. Maybe we're not going to win the Premier League after all. We've got the Champions League as well. We're going to ignore those odds and we're going to give it one final shot to try and win even more silverware with Newcastle United. Before we see the final season though, don't forget to smash that like button if you have enjoyed the video. I massively appreciate anyone that does that. Thank you all for your support, but let's see our final season. And whilst we were poor in the FA Cup this year, we did make the Carabao Cup final for the first time in this rebuild. And we got off to a great start against Man City. In the second half, Arda Güler put us 1-0 up. And then only a few minutes later, Semih Kılıçsoy got down the right-hand side, tore apart Manchester City's defence. It was once again Arda Güler. Joe Linton was there. He wanted to leave the other season. He came back, and even though he wants a new challenge, he is going down as a Newcastle legend. But of course, Man City are a great team, and with only 4 minutes left of the 90, Kefram Turan went forward and bagged a goal past Atabulu, and we tried to hold out, but in the 96th minute, again, Kefram Turan broke through our defence and put a very similar finish past the goalkeeper. That was 2-2, and we were heading to penalties. And after everybody scored and it went to sudden death, Oscar Bob stepped up and missed his penalty, and it was down to Estanis Pedrola to win us the Carabao Cup, and he slotted home. And we won the Carabao Cup for the first time in the rebuild. So that's a Carabao, an FA, a Europa League, a Super Cup, and also the Challenge Cup against the South American team that we won. The Champions League, we were knocked out by Inter Milan in the semi-finals, a great run where we knocked out the likes of Barcelona 5-4 in the quarters, and we also took out Liverpool 6-0 on aggregate in the round of 16, but it wasn't to be in the end. It ended up being Inter that beat us, and then they lost to PSG 4-0 in the final, so we probably never stood a chance if we couldn't get past Inter. But the big question, of course, is how did we do in the Premier League? And the answer is we won the whole bloody thing, and if that wasn't already good enough for a Newcastle fan, they finished first while Sunderland finished 20th with 22 points, getting relegated. We got 88 points, 7 points clear of Man City, only 4 losses, 7 draws, a brilliant season all around. And if we have a look, it wasn't just the Alexander Isak show this season. We had Pedrola scoring 21, Isak with 27, Kılıçsoy with 22, too. Valverde was great, as was Livramento, Tonali, Dewsbury Hall, Gordon. We have built an unreal squad here. I think this Newcastle team we built is one of the most formidable sides in world football. We have got a 4.5-star reputation. The facilities are max. The capacity is down because they are currently expanding the stadium even more to hopefully have near enough 60,000 people in the stadium. So if you do continue it on Patreon, you're going to have a big stadium to work with. But overall, we have built an incredible squad. We joined Newcastle as a successful side that hadn't won many trophies in recent times, but we've now added pretty much every trophy we could have won to the cabinet. We didn't get to the Champions League, but everything else we absolutely smashed. That has been a Newcastle rebuild. Hopefully you have enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.